CBS Sports HQ presented by PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1918, I should say, 65. I looked up on their website, how do they describe brilliantly boring? It is smart, steady, and dependable. All words you could probably use to describe Texans quarterback CJ Stroud. The Texans reporting to training camp this week. Fans are absolutely thrilled because last year, one hell of a turnaround for this team, winning just 3 games the year prior to a 10-7 record, winning the AFC South behind CJ Stroud and their new head coach, DeMeco Ryans. And in Houston is where we find CBS sideline reporter Evan Washburn, also the guy who's been dealing with flight delays like pretty much the entire country here. Bryant McFadden just got off the plane, made it to their training facilities. Guys, let's start with some of the biggest additions that we've seen to this Texans offense. We get Stefon Diggs, and you get running back Joe Mixon. B-Mac, you and I were talking earlier this week, and you actually think it's Joe Mixon who's the bigger addition given just how atrocious their running game was last season, right?
Yeah, no question, Amanda. When you talk about the success they had a year ago, it was almost like musical chairs at the running back position. Dameon Pierce was the guy, dealt with some injuries, and then, of course, Devin Singletary came in and took it by hold. But when you look at Joe Mixon, he provides something they haven't had in a long time, a featured running back. And you talk about trying to close ball games and finish ball games. Now when you have a guy like Joe Mixon behind the quarterback in CJ Stroud, you don't have to throw the football around the yard to try to close ball games out. You can hand it to your ultimate closer in Joe Mixon, and he can do the dirty work. So I understand Stefon Diggs definitely is a big-time addition, but they didn't have any issues throwing the football a year ago. You know, when you get a guy like Joe Mixon who's newly motivated also, in behind your quarterback, you better believe they're going to find ways to close the games the right way and do it the old-fashioned way, which is running the football.
Yeah, no doubt. A running game is the best friend to a quarterback, and C.J. Stroud going into year 2 is now going to have to face BMAC defenses that have had an entire offseason to plan for him. But make no mistake, the addition of Stefon Diggs matters. We saw that on the field today. Again, this was the first day padded practice. We had some close to live periods in the red zone. 2 touchdowns, nearly 3 for Stefon Diggs. You match him up with that group that includes Tank Dell, healthy now, Nico Collins having a breakout year a year ago, and this is one of the deepest and most dynamic pass-catching groups in the NFL. So agreed, running game is going to be key, and improved defense, which we'll get to, but Stefon Diggs motivated as well on a 1-year deal here in Houston.
Evan, I'm curious. I mean, you're there every single Sunday on the sidelines for CBS. You're talking to these coaches over the course of the year, to the players, specifically guys like CJ Stroud, such a phenomenal, a historic first year. What, in your opinion, do you think are the biggest expectations, maybe a difference? They've been pretty quiet about him over the course of the summer. What are you looking forward to when it comes to CJ Stroud year 2?
Loves your word historic, because that was year 1, and that means expectations from the outside have gone through the roof. But from everyone we talked to, I've talked to in lead up to this visit and really this season when it comes to CJ Stroud, the words that come up are confidence and command, and it becomes the little things because he's now moving into that territory of elite status. And what separates BMAC those quarterbacks are the details. I mean, I heard it come up in training camp here. I mean, he's as concerned about how tight the huddle is when he's calling a play. Year 1 was basically, what can I do? What can I do to understand the playbook? I mean, things are coming at him fast. The game will start to slow down, but the challenge will increase. And from, again, everyone we spoke to and then what we saw in limited capacity on the field, C.J. Stroud seems poised to match, if not exceed, what he showed us in year 1.
And one of the main things that we raved about with C.J. during his rookie campaign was the ability to protect the football. He didn't have a lot of turnovers. Now, when you factor in coming into his year 2, the expectations are higher because it's safe to say he kind of surprised all of us with how well he played and how consistently he was able to play to that level. But now the expectations, as you talked about, he's straddling the fence of that elite-like status when you talk about elite quarterbacks. Now you have to live up to that building week in and week out. But for CJ, when you look at the guys that we've talked about that surrounded him on the offensive side of the football, Evan, you don't need to be Superman every day. You can just go ahead and be Clark Kent. Be smart with the football and allow the outstanding playmakers that are surrounding you to do what they've been called to do. And that led to a lot of success for him a year ago. And if he has that same mindset, you better believe they're going to have an entertaining year on the offensive side.
That is the offensive side of the ball. Potential entertainment there. We already saw it last season, but now you do get guys like Diggs and Joe Mixon on that side. BMAC, We got to talk about your side of the ball. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. What's your outlook for the Texans defense with the addition of guys like Danielle Hunter?
It reminds me a lot of what D'Amico Ryans had when he was the DC there in San Francisco. So much depth when it comes to putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, starting with Danielle Hunter, a guy who is a double-digit sack guy when he's healthy, when he's in the ball games. But outside of Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry is a guy who they pretty much snatched from a divisional foe in the Tennessee Titans. He, oh, by the way, had double-digit sacks a year ago. And then you have to throw in second-year pro Will Anderson Jr. So when you talk about those three guys, when you look at the experience that Autry and Hunter has and the upside of Will Anderson, you better believe D'Amico Ryans will have a plan in place to be able to get those guys in favorable matchups to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks, because if you can do that, it makes life easier for guys in the back end like Derek Stingley Jr.
Yeah, I think lost in all this, Amanda, is obviously the attention with C.J. Stroud and the addition of Stephon Diggs. This defense was really revamped in the offseason. 14 free agent additions, some of which B-Mac alluded to, 5 draft picks. So Nick Caserio, along with that front office and D'Amico Ryans, have looked what they did defensively a year ago. And let's be honest, it was average at times, dealt with injuries. They recognize to meet expectations, again, to use that word, this defense has to be much better, because you look at their schedule and it is a gauntlet of some of the top quarterbacks, including names like Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Tua. I mean, it is a rough run for this defense. So they seem to have armed themselves with a group both up front and in the back end to attack them.
Evan, you use that word expectations, and obviously compared to a season before, there are a lot of expectations now on this Texans team after winning the AFC South, getting that incredible record last season. What are, Evan, the expectations for this team? Because repeating as champs of their division, I mean, that seems great, but this is a team that seems like it has that quiet confidence in itself that it can make a serious push in the postseason.
Well, we talked to Jimmy Ward after practice, Jalen Preachy, and like, they're not shying away from the name championship or the word championship. Now, that could be division, and that could obviously be a conference championship. The goal is to get to a Super Bowl. And D'Amico Ryans, we're talking to him after practice, and he's not hiding from that idea. But, look, they're pretty steadfast in not really listening to the outside noise. And that is a cliche this time of year.
Yes,
but
it is.
You can speak to this even more than I can. As a former player, D'Amico knows how to relay that message to younger players, including his quarterback, C.J. Stroud, about how really none of that matters. And internally, their belief is what matters. And I think that's what made this team so fun a year ago. When none of us saw it coming, they saw something. And so I think that same fuel, that same energy will be critical, because they will be a marked team this year, not just by those of us in the media, but where I see it is when they're playing teams on Sunday, Thursday, or Monday, they're a team that opposition knows, hey, we beat the Texans. That's a big win come playoff time.
Yeah, and when you talk about D'Amico Ryans being a former player, he's relatable to the guys currently in the locker room, and he understands how to keep them dialed in. But it's cliche to say we don't listen to the outside noise, but I'm going to keep it real with you. They listen to the outside noise. They hear it. They pay attention to it. But you don't want that to be in front of you. You have to understand what is being expected of you, but you have to go out and deliver the goods. So when you talk about what they did a year ago, as you mentioned, Evan, they surprised all of us. No one thought they would be able to do what they did, especially as fast as it happened. But now, when you bring in other guys like Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Danielle Hunter, Autry, now you're telling all of us from the outside looking in, we're all in. So now that's what we expect to see. And when it comes to the elite teams of the National Football League, it doesn't matter how high the expectations are. They deliver. They deliver every day of the week. The Kansas City Chiefs of the world. And you talk about Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, some of the other teams as well. So this is the neighborhood that the Houston Texans are now starting to flirt with. And I believe if they stay healthy, Evan, no question they can get it done, because as we talked with D'Amico and, talked with Cal and Hannah McNair, when you have a quarterback and a head coach, you have more than a fighting chance.
Yeah, and one quick point to that I think is when you mention teams like Kansas City, New England, when they had it rolling, Baltimore, even though they bring back players like C.J. Stroud and some of the key pieces, they recognize that they've knocked this thing back down to the studs and they have to rebuild it. So they're not leaning on any of that success, Amanda, from a year ago.
You guys delivered on this segment. I'll deliver a little news to you. Your best tacos in Houston, they're going to come from gas stations, and the green salsa is better than the red salsa. So there you go. Keep it in mind while you're there in Houston. Guys, we appreciate it. Have fun talking to the coaches and the players as things roll along there at Texans Training Camp. NFL season, we are counting down the days. It kicks off on CBS September 8th.